Alright, hello, welcome back to another episode. So, this week's the dyno. On Thursday is the dyno. I don't know if you can hear me. Car's over there idling away. She's hunting a little bit because she's still, she's still got a base map in it. It's nothing really all that flash. I filled it up with coolant yesterday, and it was pouring out the O-ring that goes through the tube through the valley. So I had to pull all that off. I didn't do a time lapse of it because I have a funny feeling that this video might be quite long as it is. If not, I'm sorry, I didn't do a time lapse of it. So I've just filled it all up with water. She's gotten up to temperature. She's happy with the temperature that she's staying at. I went into town today. We've got a brand new set of tyres for it, which might have been a bit much, considering that it might blow up on the dyno on Thursday, but fingers crossed I can drive it. Yeah, so I'm just going to let it idle for a bit longer, get all the tyres on it, get it off the stands, and then I'll get it down, get the bumper on, put the headlights back in, and she'll pretty much be ready to go. Just got some things in the interior to tidy up, and then we'll move forward from there. So she's got alright oil pressure, it's hunting a bit, it's got good vacuum, running a bit on the leaner side at the moment. So hopefully she's all good, hopefully you can hear me. Alright, so the shed is now empty because she's now sitting outside. So she's all back together, a bit rushed, didn't really want to rush it, but just it's got to get on the dyno tomorrow, so we've got to get it all ready and going and sorted for today. So I'm just going to give it a quick wash, and chuck it up on the trailer. Okay, so she's all loaded up onto the trailer. It was pretty hard driving up onto the trailer with the tune it's got in it at the moment, but I got it on there, so it's a win, I suppose. Alright, so yeah, just all we can do now is hope tomorrow is a good day and everything goes to plan. And yeah, I'll try and shoot some footage. Of the car. As I said, the dyno that I'm going to, the dyno cell is actually really small, so I don't know how much video I'll get, but I'm taking my phone and taking this camera, so hopefully I can get like a couple of shots, even if it's just of some power runs, and I'll let you know how it gets on and see if this whole MyVic swap was worth it or not. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow. Alright, so it's the day after the dyno, and unfortunately things didn't quite go to plan. Nothing catastrophically failed, so the motor's still fine, the motor's okay, the heads are all okay, everything like that. Within 10 minutes of being on the dyno, my oil line, my oil return, as you can see, just got toasted. I don't know if you can see the discoloration in this part here, it just got too hot and it burnt through the rubber lining on the inside, and under burst that just put oil absolutely everywhere. So I had to quickly run into town and make up a new oil line, which I did, and that was fine for the rest of the day. And so that was sweet, that was sorted, that was all okay. We had on the dyno, we had it running. The first dyno pull we did, it made 160 kilowatts at all four wheels. So that's 100 kilowatts down on what it made with the stock heads. Now the issue we were having is no matter what my tuner did, he couldn't get it to rev past 4,500 RPM. Now with that, we couldn't work it out. When we revved it nicely, just free revved it or revved it with low boost, it revved out. But as soon as we put full boost under it, it wouldn't rev over 4,500 RPM. That was it. That was as high as she was going to go. That was the end of the story. So we looked at it, we thought about it, and we diagnosed it as valve float. Just the springs weren't keeping up with the boost, and that was kind of kind of confirmed by the fact that we could rev it out when we were running the lower boost, like 8 psi or something like that, half throttle. So I packed it up, I brought it home. Now, when I got home that night, I got a call from my tuner saying that he was looking over the tune and my firing order was set up wrong. And me and Mike were discussing that, because Mike was the one that helped me do all the ECU and do the start up on it and that. And we both agreed that we both put in the proper firing order for these motors, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we agreed, we're like, yes, I saw him do it. And I actually went home to check it the night we were wiring it up, and yes, that was right. Came back and I saw him type it in. Then the car wouldn't start. And what happened was I had wired up the fuel pump relay to the wrong power source. So when the car was winding, that no longer had power. So we had to sort that out, which was easy enough. It wasn't a problem. We got it sorted. That was all good. The issue was, when we did that, Mike didn't hit save to ECU. So when we started it up again, it jumped back to its original firing order, which was, I think, something like 1, 2, 4, 4, 6 or something stupid like that. And because that happened, the engine ran. It never ran good, but we always just assumed that it was just because it needed a tune. But it never ran good, but it ran. When we got into the dyno, my tuner didn't look at that because it came in running, and I told him what the firing order was because we knew what the firing order was. So that night we looked at it. Okay, sweet as, done. I changed the firing order, and then I took it down the road for some testing, which I'll show you a clip of now. It's poor quality, I'm sorry. The vibration through the car into the phone makes it dreadful. But here's a clip here of the testing. So in that clip you would have seen me drive it, and then the camera rolls up. We can't see the speed of you can't see the tachometer anymore. But I still couldn't rev it past 5,000 RPM. So I started talking to Link ECU, not because I thought it was a problem with the ECU, purely for the fact that I didn't know what was wrong, and I was just bouncing ideas, and I really didn't want to pull the heads off just yet. Until I'm 100% sure that it was valve flow. Anyway, so while doing that testing, I don't know if I've edited it or not properly, but at the end of it there was a bit of smoke. And during that testing, my brand new line burnt through. Now this is supposed to be high temp stuff, and it is, but it's just sitting too close to the exhaust manifold. So what I'm going to have to do is I think I'm going to have to make a full steel drain, which is a massive pain in the butt, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We'll just get there, we'll sort it, it's not a big problem. But that's my next problem, so we've got to sort that out as well. So because I couldn't, in that testing, I still couldn't rev it high enough. I could rev it to 5, so it felt like it was revving higher, but it just wouldn't go any higher than that under full boost. And I was talking to Link, and he said, you know, send me your tune, send me the log. So I did that, and my dwell for the coil was set really, really low. Because when it was on the dyno with my tuner, because it wasn't running, he was just trying anything to get it running, so he pulled a lot of the dwell out of the coils. So Link said, you know, bump that up to, because they're technically Evo 3 coils, bump it up to the Evo 3 base mat dwell, and go from there. So I did that. I took it down to just my paddock down here, took it for a skid, and it revved out to 7,000 RPM in first gear. It was very hesitant in second, but in first gear it revved out, which to me ruled out valve flow. I'm not 100% sure, but I am starting to head towards ruling that out. So the next issue was, when I did that, because the second I was in first gear, second I hit boost, I just broke traction on all 4 wheels. I could only get about 12 pound of boost. I couldn't get the full 14 pound. But I also have a feeling that my blow-off valve is leaking, because last time I ran that blow-off valve I couldn't get over 10 pound of boost either. So what I am going to do is I'm going to pull that off and block it up, and then try it again. Also, Link has suggested that I should plug my gaps, get my plugs smaller, down to 0.4, purely for the fact that if I gap it down to 0.4, it should rule out a poor ignition system, and we can just start looking at other issues. So I'm gonna plug my gaps. I have to make a new oil feed, which is what I'm gonna do in next week's video, and then I'm going to move forward. I'm just going to do testing, and then if it becomes valve float, it does, you know, if it becomes certainly valve float, I'll find some new valve springs, I'll put them in, and we'll move forward that way. But currently, with this situation, the tune in it is roughly okay for me to see if it's working, so I should be safe for testing. My biggest issue with testing is I live down about a 10-kilometre gravel road, so I have to obviously drive that before I can get to tarmac, before I can do any real testing, and then, you know, they're my neighbours and stuff, and I don't really want to be upsetting them, but I think it'll be okay if I just do a couple of tests here and there. So yeah, so next up for the car is testing, changing a few different things in the setup, seeing if I can get it to run good, and then if it does run better, I don't need it to run well, I just need it to run to 7,000 RPM at 15 PSI in second or third gear, and to me then that means it'll be ready to go back onto the dyno. Then it'll go back onto the dyno. Unfortunately I didn't actually get any videos of it on the dyno, purely for the fact that it's, for me, dynos are incredibly stressful, and B, just with issues happening, with the oil line happening, with everything else happening, the last thing I was thinking about was picking up the camera to record. I know I probably should have, because, you know, some of you people might have watched it and gone, oh, this is the problem, or oh, this is definitely the problem, and without any footage you guys will never know, and I'll never know. But yeah, so there's nothing really I can do about that now. I don't have any footage from it, so I'm just going to move forward. So first things first is I need to make a new oil drain. I'm going to have to make a steel one so it doesn't get hot anymore. Once that's done, I can move forward onto doing things like testing the ignition. Also, Link asked me if I had any sorts of blocks in my exhaust. You know, any sort of restrictions like a collapsed muffler or anything like that, because that can do that as well. And in this car I literally have turbo, and then it's just 3-inch straight out the back. But I do have a cheap flexi in there, and I have seen them implode. So I do need to just pull the exhaust apart and see if it hasn't tried to suck itself in and isn't being a massive restriction, because that could also be causing me you know, the flat spots and the lack of revving as well. So yeah, unfortunately this is going to be a shorter video than what I was really hoping for. I thought it was going to be a good long video with great, great numbers, etc. But it is what it is. Well, I mean, everything else survived the dyno, even though it was popping and banging and running like shit, really. But yeah, we just need to get that sorted, and we can move forward from that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next week where we start ripping into and diagnosing some of the problems we've had. And we'll just move forward, and yeah, thank you very much. Catch you next week.